such non-trivial matters as the nature of God. I know that the suggestion of human authorship can seem to some like a denial of the unique sacredness of the Bible, but the Bible itself names human authors for most of its books, meaning no more perhaps than that a collection of writings shared an affinity for the thought of a particular teacher or school. In other words, whether or not these attributions reflect authorship as we understand it, the Bible itself indicates no anxiety about association with human minds, words, lives, and passions. This is a notable instance of our having a lower opinion of ourselves than the Bible justifies. I take it that in the course of their development, the Scriptures were pondered very deeply by those who composed and emended them, and that this created a profound coherency, stabilizing difficult concepts or teachings to the point that earlier and later passages can be seen as elucidating one another. I imagine a circle of the pious, learned, rabbis before the word, remembering together what their grandmothers had told them, finding the loveliness of old memory in an odd turn of phrase, realizing together that these strange tales sustained a sense of the presence of God that was richly renewed for them in their reverent deliberations. This is how religions live in the world. I take it that in a wholly exceptional degree, their deliberations found their way to truth. For us moderns, there is a kind of safety in finding a taint of factionalism or self-interest in anything human beings have done. The hermeneutics of suspicion arose early in 19th century readings of these very texts, if they were in fact patched together from various documents, whose writers can be deduced from their language and emphasis, and whose purposes were not theological after all, but instead political or factional, then thousands of years of credulity have been embarrassed by a flood of journal articles. No one wants to be found among the credulous. Belief itself exists in disturbing proximity to credulity, a fact that has afflicted the Church with a species of tepid anguish for generations. I am proposing here that there is a hermeneutics of self-protectiveness that has disabled interpretation and that has generalized into an abandonment of metaphysics as a legitimate mode of thought. Does it make any sense that if the supposititious band of document writers known to scholars as E, J, P, and D, with all their supernumeraries, were not thinking theologically, therefore metaphysics itself is foreclosed? This is like saying that if the moon landing was actually filmed in Arizona, there is no universe. It is striking how the scale of thought has contracted with the loss of serious theology. A contemporary Kant or Hegel would find little purchase in the vocabulary of thought allowed to us now. In any case, biblical texts in general may seem to exist under the shadow of a demystification that happens not to have touched them yet. But they are really far too tough-minded to be the products of ordinary, this-worldly calculation. This quality of mind is carried forward through the whole of the Bible. Collective decisions having to do with the language of creeds, the accuracy of translations, and so on, have been accepted as highly authoritative from the early history of Christianity. The canons of the Hebrew and the Christian Bibles were determined by councils. The writings of major theologians can be virtually deuterocanonical, even or especially when it is forgotten that a doctrine has a history and an origin. I assume that the reflection on Scripture by its compositors was theological in nature, governed by beliefs of overriding importance.